Aniseed Trout Powerbait came out in late 2020, and in today's video, I'm going to give my review and 5 tips to help you catch more trout with this latest trout doe from Berkley. What is going on, you outdoor mavericks? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk all about powerbait, in particular Aniseed scented powerbait. I was excited at the end of 2020 when Berkley came out with this new line of natural scented powerbait in the Aniseed scent. Anis is an underrated scent when it comes to fishing. We use it in salmon fishing, steelhead fishing, as well as trout fishing. So when the Aniseed powerbaits came out last year, I was able to get my hands on 5 of the 6 colors that came in the Aniseed scent. They came out with 6 colors, which were orange, black and red, black and green, black and brown, yellow, and white. Now, white was the only color I wasn't able to get my hands on, but I've been fishing these a lot since they came out in August of 2020. And for me, I wanted to put these to the test to see how well they did in all kinds of different conditions, water conditions, weather conditions, small lakes, small ponds, big lakes, streams, high mountain lakes. I wanted to put these through the test to give you guys some insights and information so that when you get your hands on this Aniseed powerbait, it's going to help you catch more trout. So first, let's break this down by the different seasons. Now, I fished this in the late fall, the winter, the spring, and now in the summertime. And let's start with the winter time. This was one of my favorite winter powerbait colors to use when I was out trout fishing. What I found is when the water started to warm up in the later afternoon on those cold days, this was a great scented powerbait that the trout really like. In the springtime, I also found the same thing. When you get those warmer afternoons after maybe really cold mornings and the trout were a little bit more bitey, they really loved and went after the Aniseed powerbaits. And in the late springtime and in that transition to the summer, especially when it started to get warmer, what I found was when the water started to warm up maybe a degree or two into that perfect zone into the 50s, the trout really loved the Aniseed powerbait. There were certain days and certain temperatures in the right path between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, which were typically slower days, when they would really go after the Aniseed powerbait. But in the summertime in particular, it's been a really hot bite with the Aniseed powerbait. Now, I will say I've been using it a lot versus some of the other baits that I have with me. But overall, I've been getting multiple bites, especially in high pressured areas, low pressured areas, especially in areas where the trout may not be biting as well. The Aniseed powerbait really came through. Now let's talk about water conditions. Now, I fished these in all kinds of water conditions as well over the last 12 months, whether high water, low water, water that was on the rise, water that was really on the fall, different colors of water. So really stained, maybe really dirty water, but also very clear water. The red, the yellow, and the orange did really well on stained and dirty water. They did really well in the springtime in particular, especially when places got stocked, and on slow days, those colors and scents did really well. And in the summertime with the clear water, the black and brown and the black and green and the black and red have been dynamite. More natural colors, you've got a little bit more of that black in there. The black and brown did very well in the clear water. It was by far the best of the 5 colors to fish in clear water, and especially clear low water. Then when you're talking fall fishing, winter fishing, and that early spring fishing, when you've got a mix of different maybe clear waters, maybe a little bit stained waters, all of the colors did pretty well. And for the most part, orange was one that did exceptionally well, especially in the fall when those fish are transitioning, the water's getting a little bit cooler, especially in big lakes when the trout are moving in closer to the bank. That orange did extremely well. Now, a couple of other things to share about the Aniseed powerbait. Now, throughout all the seasons, that was true in all cases. On slower days where the bank anglers or even anglers from the boat had a little bit slower of a bite, depending on the conditions and the water, the Aniseed did really well. I got a few additional bites on one day in particular when nobody was getting bit. This was the only scent and only colors that were working. And that could just be the case if you're presenting something different to the trout that no one else is got out there. Now, on days where it was pretty good fishing or really extremely good fishing, I'm talking like 20+ trout days, it held up well against the other colors and the other scents they were using, like just natural powerbait color, garlic, nightcrawler, some of those other powerbait scents that you can think of. This went punch for punch with those other colors, and I would say that that is really good. If this was really slow and bad during good days of fishing, that would be a little bit of a concern, but it went punch for punch with those other colors and scents and did really well. And then in terms of different bodies of water that I fished this on, I fished this on high mountain lakes, little ponds. I even fished this underneath bobbers, plunking off the bottom, big lakes, small lakes. I even fished this in a couple streams, just floating underneath the bobber just to give it a try. And it seemed that no matter what the body of water, the Aniseed Powerbait did really, really well in all kinds of different bodies of water. Now, there wasn't one particular body of water that stood out that did better with the Aniseed than any of the others. It just did really well and was consistent across those different bodies of water. So I would say is if you're gonna grab some of this Powerbait and take it out, it will give you the opportunity to catch fish in all kinds of weather, water, and bodies of water. So then in terms of what colors did better than others, well, brown and orange were definitely the two that stood out the most. Now let's talk about orange first. When I was able to fish the orange, I got more bites and was more consistent across different conditions, different bodies of water that I was fishing this with. So if you could only get your hands on one of these jars, or you could only pick one, I definitely would go with orange. I would also add the black brown is another solid option if you can't get your hand on the orange. Now when you're talking about low clear water conditions, this black brown was dynamite. And in clear water, especially in that late spring and the summertime when we're getting less rain and the water's getting super clear, brown is a very natural color, and the brown black with the glitter was dynamite. So if you only had two colors to pick from, go with orange first and then brown, and then I would say the rest of them are kind of grouped together. None of them were bad, but these are the two that stood out the most. So then let's talk about my 5 tips to fish the Aniseed Powerbait. My first tip is to fish this at all times of the day. I would say out of all the Powerbait colors and scents over the last couple years I've used, Aniseed was most consistent on the morning bite, the mid-morning, the noon bite, especially good in the mid-afternoon bite, and in the evening bite, it was consistent across the board. So you're gonna wanna fish this at all times of the day, and this is a great thing, especially in the late afternoon time when the bite can slow down. The Aniseed scented Powerbaits did extremely well during that time frame. Now tip number 4 would be to add additional scents, whether it's a gel or a spray, to these Powerbaits. Now when I did some experiments in the spring and in the summertime this year in particular, adding a little bit of garlic or a little bit of Nightcrawler scent from Procure or the Rooster Tail scents was definitely something that stood out, and I got a ton of bites. My number 3 tip is to fish these in stained and off-water conditions. Now one of the things that I really enjoyed in the springtime is I was able to really put some of these colors like this yellow and the orange to the test in really dirty water, and they succeeded. They got really good bite and land hookup ratios. The bright colors and even some of the duller colors did really well in that stained water, and part of it could be the color but also the scent. In areas where there are fish, they may not be able to see it clearly because the water is dirty, but I got plenty of hookups in that stained water with these Aniseed Powerbaits. Now my number 2 tip is to fish the Aniseed Powerbait when the water is warming up. And here's what I mean by that. There were specific days in the springtime, the early summertime, the late fall, and the wintertime when you've got cooler mornings, the water temperatures and the temperatures outside are dropping a lot. You get that noon sun and the waters warm up in the later afternoon time frame, right? The bite might be better in the afternoon than in the morning, and that's very true in the wintertime. And on those days when you got to sleep in a little bit and fish maybe more of the afternoon to let that water warm up, the Aniseed Powerbait did amazing. And my number 1 tip is to start incorporating this as the first Powerbait or the first bait that you toss out when you're going trout fishing. Now as anglers, we can sometimes be creatures of habit and fish the same thing over and over again as that first bait that we put out, that first scent, that first color. It might have worked yesterday, we're gonna throw it again. And what I'm sharing as my number 1 tip is to incorporate the Aniseed scented Powerbait as that first bait that you get out there in the morning. And it's gonna help you hook up and land more trout in that early morning time frame and get you off to a really hot start for the day. Now my overall review of the Aniseed Powerbait is it is awesome. I would recommend, if you can get your hands on this latest natural scent Powerbait, is to grab it and go fish with it. It's gonna help you catch more fish. It's gonna be something that not everybody is going to be throwing out there as a bait, and especially on slower days and on water conditions and weather conditions that typically are the slower time frames where you get less bites. I think this is gonna be a game changer to help you catch more trout during those previously slower times. They're gonna help you get more hookups, more bites, and a lot more pictures of big old trout that you're gonna be able to show off to your friends. All right. Alright everybody, and that is my review and 5 tips for fishing with the Aniseed Trout Powerbait from Berkley. So this was my first review and tips video that I've done, and if you guys really liked this video and got some information out of it, smash the thumbs up on that video, guys. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing if you guys love trout fishing tips, and other outdoor content. And don't forget, and as always you guys, the outdoors is a gift, share it with others.